Just had time for a small sip of water back there. It was delicious. All right, I would like to welcome a very special guest. We have with us today the U.S. Fire Administrator, Dr. Lori Moore-Merrell. She was appointed by President Biden as the U.S. Fire Administrator on October 25, 2001. Prior to her appointment, Lori served nearly 3 years as the President and CEO of the International Public Safety Data Institute, which she founded after retiring from the IAFF. During her time at the IAFF, she personally helped me with data gathering analysis for numerous large projects, and was always just an incredible resource for me while I was serving as president of Local 134 in Atlanta. She began her fire service career in 1987 as a fire department paramedic in the City of Memphis Fire Department. Lori is a doctor of public health and data scientist whose work has changed fire and EMS deployment throughout the world. As the principal investigator and senior project manager, she oversaw the development of landmark reports and other tools to improve residential and high-rise fireground operations, community risk, fire and EMS resource deployment, and big data analytics, which is her baby. Her work continues to influence executive decision-making across the country. Please welcome my friend, Dr. Lori Moore-Merrell.
Good morning. I am so honored to be able to be here with you and certainly to follow what we all just witnessed. You know, I said it's a little tough to follow a video. I had to stop crying backstage before I could come out. But I'm excited to see the legacy that Bobby has left, and I'm going to add to that my own little bit of remembrance for Bobby. Bobby and I have been friends for a very long time. He would often say, oh, it's been over 30 years, and I would say, Bobby, I'm not that old. But Bobby was a dear friend, and when I was appointed as U.S. Fire Administrator, Bobby was one of the first calls that I received. And he was one of the first interviews, and that's what that photo is from. We did an interview, and you know, as always, Bobby liked to ask the hard questions, the insightful questions, and to sort of put you on the spot, but always ready to hold you accountable to perform. In whatever position you were in, Bobby was going to hold you accountable. And he did for me as well. He had great expectations. He had an expectation that I would lead and that I would bring change. And so with that, I want to tell you about your U.S. Fire Administration. You see, the USFA was born after a landmark report that many of you will know, the America Burning Report, that was released 50 years ago in 1973. In fact, the anniversary is May 4th, in just a couple of weeks. Based on that America Burning Report, when there were more than 12,000 fire fatalities in this country a year, the USFA was born in 1974. And so when I came into the USFA, I asked for the legislation that formatted our fire administration, because I knew that it could not be doing everything it was supposed to be doing in years past. And based on what Bobby knew as well, he was holding me accountable to fix that, as well as the rest of the fire service. We can do better. And so I pulled the legislation and I began to read and see what is it that we are supposed to be doing at the U.S. Fire Administration, and we began to facilitate change right away. So we built a reorganization that would align us with what we are to do based on that legislation from 1974 and a couple of amendments since then, and that's what you see on the screen now. Our mission is, did I push that? I apologize. Well, our mission is to prepare, strengthen, and support our first responders so that they can respond. You see, we sit inside FEMA, I should tell you that. FEMA sits inside the Department of Homeland Security. But even though we're inside FEMA, we do not share the mission of FEMA. FEMA is to help people before, during, and after disasters. USFA's mission is to prepare our first responders. You see, you're actually on the front line of a disaster long before FEMA comes. And so that's the mission of the USFA. We need to fulfill that. And so based on that, we have what we call our 4 stars. And those 4 stars, all of you, I'm sure, are familiar with our National Fire Academy. Well, training is what we're supposed to be doing. So at a National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland, fire and EMS training is one of our missions. We also have reinstituted our research obligation. I've stood up as part of the reorg a full-blown division on research and data center. We have to. We're going to change up our data system. INFRS is going away. We're going to build a brand new system. So coming soon, we're going to have a new data system. As part of that also, our National Fire Data Center will be much more active than it's been in the past to make sure that you have the data you need at all levels for decision making. And then finally, we changed what was defined as public awareness, which is really fire safety public awareness, to full board community risk reduction. That's where we need to be so that we can prepare our communities, reduce the risk, which means making the environment for our firefighters safer when you have to respond. And so as we begin to reorganize and change within the USFA, one of the other things that I saw in the legislation was that we were supposed to be having an annual summit, an annual conference on fire prevention and control. Since 1974. Do you know how many of those have happened since 1974? Just the one. So last year, in October of 2022, we held the first Fire Prevention and Control Summit, as we are supposed to at the USFA. And of course, Bobby was present. I invited Bobby to come along with leaders of all of our national fire organizations to be part of this discussion. And so we have still today a fire problem in this country. Whether our data, which is really bad, shows it or not, America is still burning. We have a problem with structure fires, 1.2 million a year. We have a problem now with new technology fires, lithium-ion batteries, and micro-mobility products that are new sources of ignition. And we have a problem with wildfire, with more than 1/3 of the population now living in what we call the interface. So America is still burning. We must talk about it. And so at this summit, by invitation, I brought in the national leaders. I brought in members of the fire service media, and we were joined by President Joe Biden. President Biden addressed us live for more than 15 minutes because he knew a lot of people in the audience. He is the first president to be so close with America's firefighters. And so President Biden was there. The Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, joined us, as did his deputy, John Teehan. And so we sat around a round table, and around this round table, I had asked the heads of the largest fire organizations to join me to talk to leaders in the federal government about the issues that concern the fire service and our firefighters. And so also present was our FEMA Administrator, Deanne Criswell, who is also a firefighter, by the way, my dear friend, but she came one of the first women in the fire service as well. We also had Caitlin Durkovich, who's the head of the National Security Council in the Office of the President. And so these people came and they listened to the leaders in your fire service. Chief Donna Black, the president of the IFC. Chief Kevin Quinn with the National Volunteer Fire Council. General President Ed Kelly from the IAFF. And this is where I have to say, whoever thought we'd have the NVFC and the IFF sitting at the same table? We also had Chief Ernie Mitchell with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, and of course Jim Pauley with the NFPA. And at this round table, I asked the leaders to come together, and we met and we prepared. And each of these organizations, as you well know, have their own mission. And I asked them and I said, can we come together? Can we stand together as America's fire service And can you not set aside your mission, but rise above it? And can we stand and speak with one voice? And every one of them said yes. And so these 5 leaders and more today stand together with what we now call Fire Service One Voice. And if you haven't seen that on social media, I invite you to become part of that. The Fire Service One Voice. All of these national organizations, again, will keep their mission. But as we move together, we have a Fire Service national strategy. And here's what we have come together on now. This is going to remain dynamic. We're going to change as it needs to be changed. But this is our strategy as of today. The first of those with this Fire Service One Voice is that we want to address the wildfire issues. We have a wildfire issue. I've already told you that 1/3 of the population now lives in fire-prone areas. You see, just because you clear the trees doesn't mean it's not going to still burn. And so this fire-prone geography in which we keep expanding, you, structural firefighters, are going to be responding. And so we have to make sure you have the right training, not wildland training, not just structural training, but in the gap. And so addressing that in your PPE and respiratory protection in the wildfire space is our first strategy, our first goal. The next one has to do with recruitment. You've already heard David say this morning that we have a recruitment problem. Whoever thought we would be challenged to find people who want to do this job, the best job in the world? And yet we do, and so we're going to have to market different. And when we get them in recruit schools, we're going to have to train differently because this new generation does not learn the same way that many of us did. And so recruitment and retention is another strategy. The third one has to do with cancer. We must continue to address cancer today. Our occupational deaths of firefighters, 75% are due to cancer. The names that go on the walls, the memorial walls in our country, 75% due to cancer. We have to interject to stop that. The National Firefighter Registry for Cancer, as you know, has been launched. If you haven't registered, make sure you do that. But we have to address cancer. We're going to stay on that, and we're going to continue to address PFAS as well. The next one has to do with behavior health. You know, we talk a lot about PTSD, and we talk a lot about suicide. We have to continue to do that, but we've also got to address the pre. We can't just keep talking about the post. We have to address the pre, and we have to begin to have programs that can build mental resilience in our people, our recruits, our incumbents, just like the Olympic athletes and just like the NFL and the Major League Baseball. They all have mental resilience building. Why not us? And so we've got to address this so that we can stop having as many people fall into that post-traumatic stress arena. And so we're going to continue to address that. The fifth one is elevating the fire service within federal government. You know, I told you that we sit inside FEMA. Well, FEMA is one of 11 components within the Department of Homeland Security. Do you know what the other 10 do? They all have something to do with law enforcement. FEMA is the only component that is non-law enforcement, and we sit inside that. What does that tell you? So we have a long way to go as we elevate the fire service within federal government. And then finally, talking about building codes and standards. You know, we've got to stay on this because the best fire is the one that doesn't happen in our structural environment, and we can change that. We have codes and standards. We just need them implemented consistently. You need to be able to have the right resources to enforce them. And what's the first thing that gets cut when we're cutting things in fire departments? So we have to rise above. And so for each of these 6 strategies, I have a working group that's been working on this since October. They're going to do a mid-year report out for me in May. We're going to see what we need to do. I've asked them for actionable items, and we're going to come to the whole of the fire service to make this change. Because this fire service one voice matters. If we stand together as a fire service, we can change the trajectory of all of the things in this strategy. And so I'm asking you, I'm inviting you to become part of the fire service one voice, along with your U.S. Fire Administration. And so now, on behalf of President Joe Biden, Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, our FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell, and all of the men and women in the U.S. Fire Service arena, your USFA, may God bless you, and may God protect all those serving on the front lines. Thank you.
The Director of the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, Joel Thacker.
And on behalf of Governor Eric Holcomb and 6.7 million Hoosiers, welcome to the Fire Department Instructors Conference in the great state of Indiana. Whether you're in attendance for the very first time or a returning champion, we're glad that you're here, and we wish you a great week of learning, networking, camaraderie with your fellow brothers and sisters in public safety. You know, for many years, I've had the pleasure of supporting this conference in one form or another, and for nearly 2 decades, under the command of Chief Bobby Halton. Chief Halton once said, referring to FDIC, "You couldn't do it in a place that better represents how to treat people well. Dignity, civility, and respect. And when you think about that, you think about Indiana." We certainly miss Chief Halton this year. You know, looking back for me, like many of you, whenever I'd see Chief Halton here in the hallways, no matter how busy, with a million different things, he always took a moment to say hello and ask how I was doing. And in that short amount of time, I was the focus. You were the focus. How are you enjoying the conference? What are you learning? More importantly, how are you going to take that back to your individual department and make others better? After his many powerful, passionate opening ceremony speeches, much like the video this morning, I tell you, I was so pumped up, I could have literally run through a wall. Dignity, civility, and respect. Those were the words that Chief Halton used to describe Indiana. Add the word passionate, and those are the words that I would use to describe Chief Halton. He spent a great deal of time in Indiana, not just for FDIC. He would return several times a year to speak at awards banquets, training seminars, fire station facility dedications. Chief Halton was here so often you could say that he was a Hoosier, an adopted one. And so this morning, because of his dedication to ensuring that all firefighters, EMTs, paramedics in this state had the very best training possible, distinguished by his humanity in living, his loyalty in friendship, his wisdom in counsel, and his inspiration in leadership. I'm proud to present posthumously to Chief Bobby Halton the Sagamore the Wabash Award, which is our state's highest honor for distinguished service. At this time, I would invite Dean Halton to come up and receive this honor on behalf of the Halton family.
the Mayor of the City of Indianapolis, Joe Hogsett.
Well, first, on behalf of the City of Indianapolis, welcome back to the 2023 FDIC International. This event for our city is always an annual highlight, and we are thrilled that you are back again, back home in Indiana. But I come out today with mixed emotion, as many others have noted. This year in particular is different. Our friend, Chief Bobby Halton, isn't here. I first welcomed FDIC when I became mayor in 2016. And I followed Bobby Halton on this stage. And I'll never forget being overwhelmed by his impassioned plea. So much so that when they introduced me, right after Chief Halton had spoken to all of you, I came out, as I did today. I looked out among the crowd, and I just simply said, I got nothing. And I walked off. I meant it. Following Bobby Halton was the bane of my existence. And I miss him so. In recognition of his passing, in honor of the lifetime of service to firefighting, it is my honor to present the following proclamation on behalf of the City of Indianapolis. In 1955, Robert Bobby Halton was born in the Bronx. Let's hear it for the Bronx. Growing up on Long Island, he was raised by his parents alongside 5 sisters and 1 brother. An early impulse to serve others led to his enlisting in the paramedic training program with Albuquerque Ambulance after his college years. Let's give it up for Albuquerque Ambulance. Bobby then found his passion for firefighting, accepted into the Albuquerque Fire Department, rising through the ranks to Chief of Training and then Chief of Operations until his retirement. Chief Halton's dedication to firefighters extended beyond his work at the station, serving as editor-in-chief of Fire Engineering magazine for 18 years. There, he grew the publication into the elite position it occupies today. Chief Halton passed away suddenly on Monday, December 19, 2022, leaving behind a legacy of service, faith, passion, and dedication to the firefighting community. I told you a few moments ago, back in 2016, when I followed Bobby the first time, I came out and said, I've got nothing. I followed him in 2017, the following year. You know what I did that year? I came out just as I was introduced today. I stood before all of you and I said three things: duty, honor, country. And he came back out. He said, you do not do me well. Today, his memory is cherished. His wife, Marcia, his three sons, Ryan, Dean, and Evan, and all who knew Bobby. So today, the city of Indianapolis joins all of his friends, all of his family, and all of his colleagues to honor his legacy of public service. Let us celebrate his example by committing ourselves to serve others just as Bobby did throughout his life. Therefore, I, the mayor of Indianapolis, do hereby proudly proclaim April 26, 2023, as Chief Robert Bobby Halton Day in the city of Indianapolis. And I ask all of you to join me in this observation. I'd like to present this proclamation to his son on behalf of the city of Indianapolis as we celebrate Bobby Halton Day in our city. Can I just share one more thing with you before I leave? Bobby would take me aside from time to time over the years that we knew each other, and he would say to me kind of quietly, "You're the only Democrat I've ever liked."
The Chief of the Indianapolis Fire Department, Ernest Malone.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for being here. What a great crowd. On behalf of the 1,300 men and women of the Indianapolis Fire Department, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Indianapolis. We are honored to have you here, and we could not be prouder than to be hosting the annual Fire Department Instructors Conference once again. While you are here, please consider yourself part of our firefighting and emergency services family. Those who proudly serve our great city, we're here to assist you in any way possible, and I hope you've noticed that already. Feel free to visit any of our fire stations and enjoy the hospitality of your brother and sisters. Make sure you stop by our fire museum located at Local 416's Union Hall this Friday afternoon and experience a piece of our history and maybe enjoy a beverage while you're there. If we can be of service during your visit, please just ask, and I'm sure we'll find a way to make your stay here enjoyable, educational, and rewarding. About our fire department, the Indianapolis Fire Department is a performance-driven, full-service, all-hazard mitigation public safety agency. Our organization's mission is to save lives, protect property and the environment, while serving our community with courage, commitment, and compassion. I would like to take just a moment and recognize the 294 firefighters currently on duty protecting us while we are here. To each and every one of them, and to their families, who all too often bear the quiet burden of their absence and are all too often forgotten. We honor your sacrifice. Firefighters, I continue to be so inspired by your service. You and your families will always have my unyielding support. If you would, please give my firefighters a hand. They deserve it, I promise you. Indianapolis is an outstanding community with what I believe is a world-class fire department that has served our city for over 163 years. Our department has 44 stations divided into 7 strategically placed battalions. You know, FDIC is such a very special event to us. One of the best things about FDIC is that it's been developed with what I call a common sense approach. One that seeks to enhance the skills of the firefighters, not only in our traditional roles in the fire service, but in preparing them for the challenges in an ever-changing world we will face tomorrow. You know, regardless of how many years or how long we've been doing this, we're all students of this service. Many of you are here this week to learn to be better firefighters, officers, or even chief officers. Whatever your motivation, I always remind you that when it comes to gaining the respect and trust of the men and women you work with, that you will have to earn. You will earn it by what you do, not by what you say. Do you engage them, involve them, motivate them, challenge them? And I believe most importantly, do you truly care about them? You know, oftentimes what we see in people depends mainly what we look for. In my opinion, being a leader has everything to do with them and very little to do with us. You know, to truly lead people, maybe we should try standing behind them. Your future as a leader in our profession can only be determined by you and the firefighters you guide, protect, and serve with. You know, it's true that we are not all the same, and that's okay. But even with our differences, we still have very much in common. Our love for the work we do, our dedication to service, and our commitment to excellence. We should recognize that there is strength in our unity. And while our differences make us unique, we share the common goal of being the best we can be in our chosen profession. That's why you all are here. We may not always agree, and we will make mistakes. But as the quote goes, making a few mistakes now and then is better than continuously faking perfection. We don't have to be perfect to inspire others. It's my hope that we can inspire others in how we deal with our imperfections. For most of us, I believe the freedom to fulfill the need to be who we are in this world is all we ask. Sometimes finding our destiny can feel like fighting gravity. I ask that you keep climbing and know that your day will come. You know, I was thinking the other day about the term e pluribus unum, out of many, one. It reminded me that within each of us, you know, there's a neighbor, a friend, a family member, a partner, a good person willing to help. We can each make a difference in the lives of others through our hope, our choices, and our actions. You know, in the ultimate equation, I don't believe that we will be measured by the margins of our personal victories, but instead, we'll be measured by the lives we lead and by the efforts toward our fellow man. This morning, I say to you that the challenges and hazards we face as a fire service are real. They are serious, and they are many. Brothers and sisters, I won't tell you that they will be easily met, or they will be met in a short span of time. None of this will be easy, but we are firefighters. We don't do easy. We do what is necessary. Know this, those challenges, I believe they will be met by the International Fire Service. It's our time. It's our time. The time has come to reaffirm our unending spirit, to choose a better history, to carry forward and build upon the service, the sacrifice, and the legacy of those who came before us. In reaffirming this greatness of our service, we need to understand that greatness is not given to us. It also must be earned. Our journey has never been one of shortcuts or settling for less. It has not been a path for the faint-hearted, for those people who prefer leisure over work or seek only riches and fame. Rather, it's been the courageous, the committed, the dedicated, the risk-takers, the doers, the men and women of our fire service history, most being obscure in this labor of love that they do. They're the ones who have carried us on this journey of professionalism and service. This journey continues today. The weight and measure of the challenges will not define us, nor will they determine us. The answers to our problems, they don't lie beyond our reach. I believe they exist in the knowledge, skills, abilities, and the imagination of people just like you in this room. Throughout our existence, many things in life have been seen or thought to be impossible until somebody did it. Every accomplishment starts with a decision to try. One day we'll all be a memory to the people we are charged with leading and protecting. I say let's do our best to be a good memory. Finally, I would like to thank you all for what you are willing to do every day. Not just what you do, but when you show up, what you're willing to do. I would also like to ask that you please commit yourself to passing on what you learned during this great conference to other members of your agencies that weren't able to attend. It's our responsibility to continue the development of our incumbent members and also to pave the way for our next generation. I am so honored to be the chief of an outstanding, progressive fire department such as IFD. And I unapologetically believe that the professional manner of these men and women of this department, what they do is second to none. And I'm very proud to serve with them. Thank you again for being here. If you see me out and about during the week, please come up and say hello. I'd love to spend some time talking with you. Please be safe. Enjoy your training and the rest of the conference. Thank you again. Take care.
sometimes there's every other, sometimes there's